Okay, this video is for Yehoshua Israel, and that is actually how you spell Joshua in Hebrew, at least phonetically. Um, so I have a lot of respect for him right off the bat. I made a mistake in the last video where I said the Queen of Sheba meets Moses. No, Queen of Sheba meets Solomon. That's the Keber Nagast, right? And that is not part of the canon, but I just wanted to show a few books here. Um, Obviously, if you don't speak Spanish, this will be useless to you. I also wanted to say, for those who's been watching my videos for years and years, I've had the same hat, the the kafir, which is this, the black bandana and sunglasses, and now Antifa has used that. A bunch of guilt-ridden, middle-class, rich white kids who've never been in a fight in their life, who have no contact with their own ancestral culture, so they don't even know who they are. At least the black people in America have an interest in their ancestry, but the non-ethnic whites, or I guess if you're an ethnic European, you kind of don't count. Though the WASPs piss me off really bad. And again, see what Protestantism has gotten you, and when you drain the rituals, traditions, and spirituality out of people, how poisoned and pathetic it can be. Okay, now I'll go through the Ethiopic canon, the writings, some of the history. Ethiopia was the second country, or Abyssinia if you want to call it, to accept Christianity as its official religion. The first was Armenia, or was it called Palmyra at the time? That was ruled by a queen. So it was not the Roman Empire. And it's arguable whether actually a state in northern India was Christian. So Rome might have been the fourth. Now, the Kebra Nagast comes from about the 1300s, and this is under the Solomonids. The Solomonids were a Miaphysite faction of the Orthodox Church. Instead of the Chalcedonian, they wiped out the Chalcedonians with the Nubians. So you had the Cushite or the Aksumite people, which were more Semitic people, and then the Nubians, or people who were later called Nubians, because early on they were kind of all called Nubians, but the Nubians, who were Bantu black, closer related to the black people of the Congo, West Africa, and their descendants in the Americas, were wiped out. So the Chalcedonians were massacred, and thus the Ethiopic Church was now on the Miaphysite end of the spectrum, and they were part of the Oriental Communion. But I believe the rift is healed. And before I start listing these works, I need to address the different view of canon in the West and in the East. In the East, we recognize anti-legomena, which means you have your main works, and then you have works where there's unsureness among the early church fathers of should this really be in here, and there was no stickler for these things in the East. So, for instance, if you look up biblical canon on Wikipedia or whatever, and they show a list, you'll see Protestant, Roman Catholic, and then it'll go down the line of Orthodox churches. But you also have to understand their view of it. I have this book here, the New American Bible. It's a Catholic Bible, but it's a good translation for things like First and Second Maccabees, as well as Wisdom and Ben Sirach, and Tobit and Judith, and the 151st Psalm, or the prayer of Manasseh, who was the wicked king that finally repented on his deathbed. The NASB is probably the most direct translation. This might be a two-parter video, people. But we have the Didache. Well, I want to point you to a site called earlychristianwritings.com, where you can access the Didache. The Diasylica, which the Ethiopians use, is a later form of the Didache, which has added in a lot of things. And it was, I should also add that Christianity had been down there from the time of the eunuch meeting. I believe it was Philip. But Frumentius and Decius, I believe it was, these two brothers were shipwrecked and came across Ethiopia, and it had a thriving Jewish population, but there was also a Christian population down there, and they connected them with the wider Christian world in the Mediterranean and India. And yeah, they were Christian by at least 324. So, I mean, even before Nicaea. And they were in full contact. This is where the legend of Prester John comes from, after all. People can debate whether it was India or Ethiopia, also known as Abyssinia. But books like the Didache, the Diasylica, the Epistle of Barnabas, First Clement, then there's Second Clement, which is less reliable. The Clementine recognitions or Clementine homilies, when you read those, it's more for context and take with a grain of salt. Jubilees and Enoch, those are accepted by, those are really, I mean, Enoch especially is read amongst the Eastern Orthodox Church a lot. Didn't make it into the canon. Again, whether it's in the Ethiopic canon or not, kind of doesn't matter. These are things you should read. The ridiculousness of saying, hey, this book that the Germans and the English shaved down from this book, this is the true work and it's all equally important. No. There was disputes about the Apocalypse of John. I like the Apocalypse, although it's not read in liturgy anywhere because it was come across too late. And things like Second Peter were debated in Hebrews and Second, Third John, but the Homologomena, like the four Gospels and the works of Paul, were never debated by anybody in the church anywhere. The problem comes with things like Esdras. People get all hyped up about Esdras. Again, occultists, sectarians, Anglo-Israelism, which is this stupid belief that the Germanic tribes of the north are the lost tribes of Israel. I have not heard, and then there's stupid people that say, well, no, that's idiotic. Actually, the lost tribes are are the black Africans. So what did they do? They just lost the ability to read and write and all cultural connection, and it just silly. Yeah, but people take that too far, and the Ethiopian Orthodox Church would even tell you they would actually fully disagree with certain parts of Esdras. I mean, there's Esdras 1 and 2, but then it goes on to 4, 5, 6, 7. Some of this stuff came really, really late. But there's many important things like Axum, and that's where the Ark is at, the Ark of the Covenant. The Kebra Nagast will tell you about how Menelik, the son of Sheba and Solomon, brought the Ark back to Ethiopia, but it probably arrived there when Manasseh took power, the evil king. Between that time and before the rise of Josiah, because there were already Jewish people living there, and you can trace the track of the tabernacle down to the Elephantine Island into Axum itself, and they actually have stuff that dates from the first temple. So this stuff was not destroyed or lost. Like I said, the Solomonites took power. One writer, and it's a I don't like any of his other writings, but it's very interesting. It's a book called The Sign and the Seal by Graham Hancock. Now, I know what you're going to think. Your knee-jerk reaction is, what the hell? Graham Hancock, this is, I believe he wrote this before he went totally fucking insane. But I'll have to continue this in a second video because there's many things I want to address, and I want to get to what lies here, because you asked about the Tetragrammaton, YHVH, or the existing one, he who is, commonly rendered Yahweh, sometimes bastardized into Jehovah. So I will get to that in part 2. Thank you for your questions. But earlychristianwritings.com is the website, but I'll go into that more in the next video, which I will record immediately after this.